Hello, my name is Angela Brady and I'm the chairwoman of the Women's Irish Network UK. Today I'm in conversation with Katie Rowan and we'll be speaking and revealing the wonderful composer and Irish woman, Ina Boyle. It is so great to see you again, Katie, and to sit in your wonderful lush garden in Islington in the middle of COVID lockdown.
Yeah.
Now, when I first met you, it was at a Women's Irish Network event in London. It was, in fact, the Irish Embassy International Women's Day,
Yeah.
and a great celebration of the achievements of women. But there's one particular woman that you are really championing, and her name is Ina Boyle. Can you tell us, where did you first come across her and what's the story?
Right. Well, the story is there is a family connection because my mother's a Boyle and my grandmother would have been her first cousin. They didn't know one another. And I knew of Ina, but I had forgotten about her. And it was only when I got involved with music here in the UK, I suddenly thought of her. And then I got in touch with Ian Fox, you know, the critic, music critic, and I said, do you know about Ina? He said, I know all about Ina. And he put me in touch with all the people in Ireland who believed in her and had been trying to get performances. And people who'd been involved in the radio programme, Ina Boyle and Nicola Lafano, and it took off from there. It all took off from there.
It must have been marvellous to have RTE Lyric playing 7 sessions of her music. That was really good because then people sometimes heard her for the first time.
Yes, well, this was a radio programme called Out of the Darkness about Ina, and it was recorded in her home in Bushy Park with her great champion, Dr. Ina Boyle, Nicola Lafano, the composer, who knew her well and had visited her and stayed with her, and of course in the home of the wonderful Davisons, who have lived there and really are so interested and so supportive. And so that's the first real move forward that really started things off, I think, really did.
Tell us a little bit about her childhood, because, I mean, she must have been like a child prodigy to be such a fantastic composer. What was her background, like her mum and dad?
Well, her father was a clergyman, and he loved music, and he was her first teacher. And then her mother had a connection with Charles Wood, who wrote a lot of sacred music. And so she, at about 10, she then started with teachers in Dublin. And then through contacts, she was put in touch with Vaughan Williams, who became her teacher and mentor. That was really how it started. But her father was such a lovely man. He lived till nearly 90. He stayed a curate all his life. He took church on a Sunday, and he made violins during the week.
Wow, so music was really in the family.
He was brought up in music, yes.
So that must have been a great influence, and they must have been very supportive of her, for her to go as a young woman to London.
When she got to know Vaughan Williams, she stayed at home. She used to travel over on the packet for lessons with Vaughan Williams in London. And he encouraged her greatly, and he really believed in her. And he wanted her to relocate full-time to London, but she wouldn't, because her sister hadn't been well, her mother hadn't been well, and so she stayed at home, and she would travel over on a regular basis with her music in her pocket, and that's so she stayed. And this is actually one of the reasons, is because she was so remote from musical life. But she had early success. She had a lot of early success with Vaughan Williams.
She was in the Proms, wasn't she, in 1923?
She was. Now, it started off that she won, her first win actually was in the Sligo Feis Ceoil.
Oh!
With one of the pieces that we're using, which is Elegy in 1913. And so she was chosen by the very prestigious Carnegie Trust to have one of her pieces published, and she was the only woman composer picked for that. And then that led to performances at the Proms and being conducted by Adrian Bolt and Sir Henry Wood.
That is fantastic for a woman to get that opportunity as well, because not many women would have travelled by themselves in those days.
She went over on her own.
She was quite a loner and quite a shy woman.
She was a very shy person. She was a very determined person. She was very committed. She never lost faith in always sending her music to people. But she was a very shy person, and and often people. I wish I'd known her really. My mother met her, but I wish I'd known her. But she was very determined and very shy, and it took time to get to know her. And Nicola tells the story when they stayed there, how there was a calendar on the wall that said 1924, and it never changed. So it was almost,
living in the past, I suppose.
Living in this wonderful environment in the family home in Wicklow.
Why did she stop travelling to London?
Well, it was the war. It was the Second World War, because she couldn't travel. And in that time, this was the other reason why she became forgotten. Because she couldn't travel, she wasn't part of London life. And at the end of the war, things had changed. And she never got back to her early promise. But she composed every single day.
So what's your favourite piece of music?
Well, I love Wild Geese. And I love the Gaelic hymns, her Gaelic hymns. In actual fact, she herself in her life, she did pay for some music to be published in her lifetime, and 5 of the Gaelic hymns are published. And those are the ones that have been performed in America.
Now tell me, where are her documents at the moment? Where's all her scripts and her music?
Well, when she died, her cousin Doreen Boyle, who was a great friend because she was a violinist in the Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, and her great friend Elizabeth McConaughey, the composer, they gave all her music to Trinity, who have preserved everything in manuscript form. And that's where her music is. Very little of it has been performed. Some has been published. But this is a huge job, is actually to release the music, to get it typeset and edited. So one's doing it stage to time.
And how big is this archive? How many pieces are there?
Huge. I don't know how many pieces, but there are 3 symphonies. There is string quartets, string music. She wrote a lot of choral music, symphonic music. It's huge, huge. And it's all there waiting to be discovered. And that's what we've been working to.
Now you have some students that are actually working on this archive. Tell me about that.
Yes, we've 2 wonderful students, PhD students. Emma, who is doing her PhD on Ina, and has typeset as part of her thesis. And then we have Orla, who is doing her thesis on early Irish women composers of the early 20th century. And she is doing all the typesetting for the big project, which is the song project at the Wigmore Hall.
Yes.
With TU as partners, which is the Technical University of Dublin. And they are very much partners in this. In fact, partnership has been central, because I'm chair of what we set up was the Ina Boyle Development Committee. So we've got the Technical University of Dublin, we've got Trinity, who are huge, and in fact without them we would never have got off the ground. We've got CMC, the Contemporary Music Centre of Dublin, and we have also other people who are some of the most important people in music in Ireland. And I chair it. I'm only the fixer in the middle. But we've also got some English musicians, very influential as part of that. And so partnership, Anglo-Irish partnership, was terrific in getting it going.
It's wonderful that you have this whole foundation set up.
Yes.
What started?
Ireland's presidency of the EU, which she shared with Iceland. And so they approached her and they wanted to do one of Ina's pieces, which is the Wild Geese. And so that was performed in London and in Iceland and in Dublin.
Wow.
And that took off. And then the next thing was a wonderful young cellist, Nadège Rocha, was doing a recording in Germany with the Weimar Symphony Orchestra. And she was making, and she wanted to fit in a woman composer. Somehow she found Ina. And the result of this was that we went to Weimar and it was recorded in her CD Cello Abbey, which has been played all over the continent.
Wow.
And then the next thing was, which was really important, was the celebration 100 years of music in Ireland, 1916 to 2016. And that was a huge thing. And it was known internationally. And Ina was in 3 recitals. And that really took off. And then the conductor, Ronald Corp, came to me and he said, look, Katie, I'd like to do an Ina recording of her. So, but he said, I think we need to raise some money. I've got my record company interested, but can you raise £10,000? I said, we'll raise it. We've no money. Because everybody's doing everything voluntarily. Nobody's being paid. Everybody's doing everything. So we did.
How did you raise the money?
Crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding?
We did it crowdfunding. We raised it crowdfunding. And that was terrific because, and then we had the launch, and then the next thing was, in 2018, dear John Gilhooly of the Wigmore Hall said, Katie, would you like to have the launch in the Wigmore Hall? Well, now, you could ask no more. Especially as she'd been performed in the Wigmore Hall in 1960. So this was wonderful. So we had the launch in Wigmore Hall, and as luck would have it, it was on International Women's Day, which was Ina's birthday.
Oh, wow.
So we had Lyric played the recording, Radio 3 was played on, it really, so what it happened, it built up. And then people started coming to us. People started approaching us, wanted to get more music, so this was where, with us all working together, and I can't praise everybody enough because it's been a real collaboration, really has. Everybody. I say I'm a part of Ina's jigsaw, and if one part of us had been missing, we wouldn't have got anywhere. So the whole thing began to really build.
That's huge success. So you're really heading now towards the big Wigmore Hall. Tell us a little bit more about the launch.
Right. Well, now this is terribly exciting. Because Ian Burnside, the great Ian Burnside, he runs a very successful song festival, international song festival in Shropshire, and he was focusing on Irish composers, one of whom was Ina. So it was very successful. So I said, look, we're thinking of doing a song project with a CD and with a songbook that would go with it, because people would want to access it. So I said, well, would you go to Trinity, have a look and see what you think? And so he met with Isha and off they went. And so it grew from that. And then the partnership with TU, the Technical University of Dublin, who are producing the songbook, and then all is doing the typesetting and everybody's doing everything. And then dear John at this stage said, well, this is very... Now, how about, he said, maybe it could be recorded for a live recital at the Wigmore Hall.
Wow.
On the 29th, scheduled on the 29th of October. And the CD would be released by the award-winning record company, Delphian Records.
Fantastic.
And so this wonderful package, where would be the recital, with really the top people. We've got Robin Tritchler, we've got Paula Murray, and young Ben McAteer, because it's important that it involves young musicians and Irish musicians.
Yes.
And so that is what we're working on. And dear Orla, who's typesetting away, and everybody's giving time, reduced fees. It's part of the Wigmore season. John has given a wonderful, because this will be the 60th anniversary of when she was first sung at the Wigmore Hall by the great Janet Baker, at her debut performance of the Hall.
That is incredible.
60 years later, bringing her back.
That is
And
just
it's wonderful.
incredible.
It's wonderful, yes.
So when Janet Baker sang her song, what was the song she sang?
No coward soul is mine.
So she wrote that?
Yes, she wrote the music. So how she would work, she would be inspired by a poem, or so she would set the words to music. So it was always being inspired. And one of the things that I find very moving, she wrote to her great friend, Elizabeth McConaughey, and she said, they've diagnosed cancer. It's not terribly good, but I've just seen this poem and I've started work on it, but she never finished it. She died before she finished it.
Well, maybe somebody else can finish that off for her.
Finished, yes, absolutely.
For the 60th celebration.
It'll be wonderful. So, and then the other exciting thing that's going to happen is the Blackwater Valley Opera Festival in Waterford. And Waterford is very special because I come from Waterford, and
beautiful opera house.
Was due to actually premiere her opera. She's written an opera, and it was going to be performed by students from the Royal Irish Academy of Music, and produced, and that was supposed to happen, but it couldn't, of course. But it's going to be next year, next season. So, but one thing, it's the music. Everything comes from the music. We've had people coming to us saying, when are we going to have more CDs? It's amazing. We've had American universities. America is very interested. And in fact, I went to America for the very first time in October of last year for the premiere of the Gaelic hymns, sung by this fantastic choir. And that, so she's spreading, and the music speaks. The music speaks. That's all that happens.
A lot of her music was written in Wicklow, so she was inspired by nature.
Yeah. She was inspired absolutely by, for example, the Glencree Symphony is about the Glencree, which is, near her home. So she was really inspired by the world around her, I think, and her own, and that makes her a uniquely Irish composer. And I can remember I was at a recital here in London of her string quartet by a wonderful young string quartet from Cork, and somebody sitting behind me said to me after, she said, Katie, I could be walking in the glen of Aherlow. And so I think she is a uniquely Irish composer, really. It's very special.
I'm sure a lot of people are quite emotionally attached to the music once they hear it.
She was a very spiritual person, but it is something in the music and something in herself that is very special, and you care because the music is wonderful, but it's more than that. It's her as a person that actually comes through, and she was so alone in her life. She kept composing, and without any encouragement. And after the war, there were fewer and fewer performances, but she kept going. And now, if you think of the many people who were batting on her team all over the place, it's just marvellous.
And Vaughan was a great supporter of hers.
Yes, he was. Vaughan Williams, who he really believed in her, and he really supported her. And he actually wrote in a letter to her in 1937, he said, I do admire you continuing to compose without encouragement, but he said, all I can say is it will come. And it has.
It's been lovely talking to you about Ina Boyle, because I never heard of her before I met you.
No, but he has.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to hear about this Wigmore Hall performance. Will it be open to the public? We can buy tickets?
Well, that is the idea. I mean, that is the whole idea, really. And we have to raise funds for it, because the big thing now is we're becoming a charity, which is being set up as we speak in the UK. But this is the first stage to setting up an Irish charity that will promote and support not only Ina, but other Irish composers, particularly women, and give them opportunities internationally.
That's really good news, and also for an Irish woman who really never really was appreciated in her time.
Exactly.
And due to circumstances, really, she although she wrote and wrote and wrote.
Yes.
It's fantastic that you and your committee are actually bringing this to life,
Yes.
so that all of that hidden music in Trinity Library will be brought out, scripted, and then performed by all those people who saw her talent and actually saw how fantastic she really was.
And we want to do that for others. I'm particularly interested personally of women, Irish women composers of her generation, because they were so held back. And there are others whose music deserves to be out there and perform much more too. So, I mean, it's just so amazing, the contemporary Irish composers that are coming through. It's just amazing. And women composers coming through. It's just mad. It's a different world now.
Yes.
And her chances come, but also to help promote others. We can do that now.
Yes,
too.
well, she's an inspirational role model. What would a final nice little ending piece be?
Well, for me, I think at my time of life, it's so satisfying and so exciting. And when I discovered her, I felt such a sense of privilege, loving music as I did, and a sense of responsibility. And it's just opened my life up, because all I wanted to do really was to give her a chance, give her music a chance, let the music speak. And the music does speak, and it speaks to a new generation, which it didn't necessarily, because of circumstances, reach her own. And that, for me, is the most wonderful thing, and for all of us.
Thank you so much for enlightening us on the life and times of Ina Boyle. It's been fantastic talking to you. Thank you very much. Pleasure.